Hello again, Mrs. Hoekstra here on Module 2, Lesson 9, Applying the Properties of Operations to Add and Subtract Rational Numbers. I'm on page 59 of our book. And you'll notice the essential question is already there for you. What is an efficient way to add or subtract rational numbers, right? What's an efficient way to add or subtract rational numbers? And this activity that we have, this exercise here on page 59, is going to be something we're going to do in class together. So we're going to skip over page 59 here. We'll do that one in class. All right, let's jump into these examples that I have here on top of page 60. Right, top of page 60. It says, represent each of the following expressions as one rational number. Show and explain your steps. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to write this first part, the 4 and 4/7, no big deal, 4 and 4/7. The first number is right where it is, but that's subtraction. Remember, we can write that. Subtraction means add the opposite. So I'm going to add the opposite. So I'm going to add -4 and 4/7. And what is the opposite of subtracting 10? I'm going to add 10, right? Because my thing that I just did was subtraction means add the opposite, SMATO, right? Subtraction means add the opposite. All right, next, what am I going to do? Well, if I look at this, I think I noticed that I've got these mixed numbers with fractions, and I also notice that they are the same denominator. So I know I can just add these pretty easily. I also know that those two numbers right there, yeah, those two are additive inverses. So if I take that and add these two, the additive inverses, they become 0. 0 plus 10, right? 0 plus 10. So that was the additive inverse. Right? They were additive inverse. So that means I'm just going to cross those out. Basically, they become 0. And then now I'm going to do the easy part. What's 0 plus 10? Yeah, it's 10. Just add. Done. Piece of cake, right? Well, let's try it again on this next one, on number 2 here, right? So don't let those fractions scare you. They're okay. It's no big deal. In fact, 7ths are my favorite fraction. I know most of you probably like, who has favorite fraction? Mrs. Hoekstra. I do. It's my favorite. All right, so let's take a look at this one. I'm going to actually start off by leaving the 5, and I'm going to add, and then I'm going to break this apart into -4 plus -4/7. Right? I'm going to break that apart. That's the sum of the opposites is the opposite of the sums. Sum of opposites is opposites of sum, right? That's what I use there. I broke this apart to make it easy for me. All right, now my 5 is going to stay right where it is, but I'm going to now add the -4 to it. And then I'm going to leave that -4/7 out here. Okay, not going to do anything to that. Well, 5 plus -4, the signs are different. So circle the bigger one, which is 5, and then I'm going to subtract them, which is 1, right? And then the sign is positive, so I'm good with that, and add my -4/7. -4/7. Okay? So here, all I did was what? Add. All right, next, I'm going to take that 1, I'm going to rewrite that as 7/7, right? Because 7 divided by 7 is 1. They're the same thing. I didn't change it. I just changed the way it looks. It's like, you know, dressing up for Halloween. You're still you just dressed a little differently. So I rewrote 1. Rewrite 1 as 7/7. That's all I did. Now, since they have a common denominator, I can just take those two fractions and just add the numerators. 7/7 plus -4/7. 7/7 is bigger. 7 minus 4 is 3. and keep the denominator 7ths. 3/7, final answer. All right, I would like you to give these next couple questions, these next two, a try on your own. All right, maybe even have your parents help you with it. Since it does say it's teamwork, maybe your parents can help you with it. And work on it together. Pause the video, see how you do, and check your answers with me in a minute. Okay, so for part A, I used SPATO. I rewrote that negative 3, right? Subtracting the negative 3 as adding, I said adding negative 3. It should be adding 3. I just now caught that. That should be a positive 3. So then I have SMATO using that. Then I took the negative 5 and added negative 5.2 and added 5.2, and I got used the commutative property that lets me flip-flop those. Remember, I talked about that in lesson 8. Then I realized, hey, negative 5.2 and positive 5.2, those are additive inverses, so those become 0, and my answer is just 3.1. All right, part B, I took that negative 12 and 7/8 and I split it into the sum of the opposites, right? I split that up. So I then had 32 plus negative 12 plus negative 7/8. I took my 32 and my negative 12. The signs are opposite when I add them. So the bigger number is 32. So my answer is going to be 20 when I subtract them. It's going to be positive because 32 was bigger. Now I've got 20 plus negative 7/8. So I broke 20 up into 19 and 8/8. So that way I could deal with my fractions. 8/8 plus negative 7/8 just gives me 1/8. So my answer ends up being 19 and 1/8. Okay? All right. So here we go for part C. We're going to do this together. 3 1/6 plus 20.3 minus negative 5 5/6. And everybody freaks out because they got all these fractions and decimals and no, we got to change them over. Don't change them over until we absolutely have to, because I have the feeling we don't need to. So let's do 3 1/6 plus 20.3. And what happens when you have subtraction? Subtraction means add the opposite. So I'm going to add positive 5 5/6. Okay. So I'm now going to rearrange this. This is, by the way, SMATO. I'm going to rearrange these into 3 1/6 plus 5 5/6 plus the 20.3. All right, commutative property lets me flip-flop them. Commutative property lets me flip-flop them, right? I just changed the order that they were written. All right, now I notice that these two here have common denominators, right? So I can probably add these pretty easily. So I could really just do 3 plus 5 plus 1/6 plus 5/6. Okay, I'm going to break that up, add those. So this becomes 8, and this here becomes 6/6. 6/6. All right, and then we still have the 20.3. Nothing's changed there. Okay, the 20.3 is still there. Well, what's 6/6? 6/6 is 1. 8 plus 1, and then plus 20.3. Look at that. You freaked out about those fractions. I know you did. And they're all gone. They don't have to worry about them. 8 plus 1 is 9 plus 20. This is just 29.3. Piece of cake. All right, let's give this next one a shot. Letter D. 16/20 minus negative 1.8 minus 4/5. First thing, SMATO. Let's get rid of those subtractions. Subtraction means add the opposite. So 16/20 plus, what's the opposite of negative 1.8? It's positive 1.8. And what's the opposite of positive 4/5? Negative 4/5. All right, piece of cake. Now, I noticed something's up with that 16/20. I noticed 16/20 can be reduced, right? I can reduce it. If I divide both the top and the bottom by 4, right? 16 divided by 4 is 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. I can reduce that. All right. And then I'm also going to change the order in which I'm doing these. I'm going to make this negative 4/5 next. And then I'm going to have the plus 1.8. Why did I do that? Because I noticed they have the common denominators. I also notice those two are additive inverses. 4/5 plus negative 4/5, that becomes 0 plus a 1.8. The answer is 1.8. Piece of cake. All right, check out page 61. Check out page 61, exercise 3. Okay, again, this is going to look a lot like what you're going to see on the test, and the test is after this lesson. We're going to review and we'll get ready for the test. Okay, so we need to be able to make sure we know how to do these. It says explain step by step. Every time you do something, you have to tell me what it was and the reason why. Okay, so what I actually want to do is take the original problem and let's just rewrite it. Negative 24 minus negative 1/2 minus 12.5, right? If you want, you can say given. It was given to me. All right, if you want to, or just leave it blank, that's fine with me. First thing I have to do, I don't like subtraction signs. Wah, wah, no bueno. Don't like those. Remember, subtraction means add the opposite. So I have negative 24 plus a positive 1/2 plus a negative 12.5, right? SMATO. Subtraction means add the opposite. Subtraction means add the opposite. All right. I think what I'm going to do now is there's a couple different ways we can go about it, but I think I want to rearrange the order of these. I think I want to flip the order. Okay, so let's go with negative 24. And then let's write this as plus negative 12.5 plus 1/2. Okay, commutative property. Commutative property lets me flip-flop the order of those. Okay, now what? I think I'm going to break this one apart. So I have negative 24 plus negative 12 plus negative 0.5 plus a positive 1/2, right? The sum of the opposites. Sum of opposites is the opposite of the sums. That's the one that lets me rearrange these. All right, when I do that, I can now combine my two whole numbers. Negative 24 and negative 12 gives me negative 36. And then I also notice that I've got these two right here. What's another way of writing negative 0.5? Negative 0.5, you could think of it as negative 1/2, right? If I think of it that way, well, what happens when I have negative 1/2 plus a positive 1/2? It equals nothing, right? So my answer ends up being negative 36. Now I got to go back and kind of do a little work here. What did I do in that last step? I added. And what did I do in the last step? I added. Easy. See, don't let those fractions scare you guys. You're going to be fine. I will see you all back in class.